That's why I think a camera in the sky kind of gets you to one level, and really starting to bring in more real-time data, real-time analytics, like have this drone be more of a cursor. That unlocks, I think, the whole next segment of value.
You're listening to the Drone Radio Show podcast, the show about drones and the people who use them for business, fun, and research. Hosted by Randy Goers.
Hello, everyone. This is Randy Goers, and welcome to the Drone Radio Show podcast, episode 138. Are we ready to make the jump to integrate augmented reality with drone systems? Today's guest believes we are, and his company has developed the first app that introduces this concept. Dan Burton is co-founder and CEO of DroneBase, a large network of drone pilots, highly engaged by streams of commercial and creative activities, creating value for the new economy. In addition to providing a platform for drone operators to undertake paid and training missions, DroneBase recently released a first-of-its-kind augmented reality platform to enable users to create whatever they imagine in open airspace. This could be a drone race course, giant works of art, or waypoints for client missions. In this edition of the Drone Radio Show, Dan talks about DroneBase, the company's technology-based solutions, and the promise that augmented reality holds in achieving positive ROI. Now, before we hear from Dan, I again want to thank those of you who have been supporting my funding campaign on Patreon. For as little as $1 per month, you can help defray the costs of production and keep the podcast going and growing. Go to patreon.com/Drone Radio Show to join the team. Now let's learn how DroneBase is impacting the drone industry with Dan Burton. Let's pick up the interview where I asked Dan to introduce himself.
So my name is Dan Burton. I am the CEO and co-founder of DroneBase, the leading platform for commercial drone operations and drone pilot professionals. We kind of serve as the operating layer for enterprise customers who need aerial imagery or data. And we accomplish all of our operations via the world's largest network of professional pilots.
Dan, why did you create DroneBase?
I guess in many ways, the problem that we're addressing is for most pilots, there's nothing to do with your drone, or there's just simply not enough to do with your drone. We kind of think about that for professional pilots, many of whom we speak with don't yet have a full book of business. We also talk to a lot of newer pilots who might have just gotten their Part 107 and are looking to get a start in this profession, but just don't know where to turn. And to be honest, I think that maybe in some ways the most least engaged group are hobbyist pilots. I'd say we talk to pilots kind of every day, and it seems like almost every person who, every hobbyist pilot who bought a drone, that drone's now on the shelf kind of collecting dust. So what DroneBase does is we provide missions to each type of pilot. So we have professional missions, more flexible missions for newer pilots, and we just introduced our first kind of avenue of hobbyist missions just for fun and for people who are, hobbyist pilots. That's a long answer to your question. I guess the short answer is we're interested in hearing from anyone that has a drone. I've been around the space long enough now to know that, kind of the people getting their start with a DJI Spark or Mavic today might pass their Part 107 next year. Maybe they have a Phantom 4 Professional, and maybe 2 years to 3 years down the road, that person might be a full-time kind of drone pilot, professional drone pilot with an array of systems and sensors and really want to do this for their full-time job. A lot about that progression.
Now, DroneBase is not just a place for pilots to list themselves and their services. You actually provide work and missions for pilots that are on the system.
That's exactly right. So, for our professional pilots, a DroneBase professional pilot, as you pointed out, of course, we'd love to start just to get your information, right? Where you live, what drone systems you have. Do you have any additional sensors? We'll obviously want to collect your Part 107 information. And that's just kind of the start from there. So as we get to know and kind of onboard a professional pilot, I'd say that we like to do a lot of work to define that task and present the pilot with a good professional opportunity. We really just don't want to be giving people weird introductions to tasks that we don't find to be either repeatable or scalable or would contribute to a pilot's development or learning. We really like to find those kind of technical, challenging, rewarding missions, whether that's in an industrial vertical or in something like insurance or real estate. So yeah, again, a long answer to your question, but we will typically assign a professional pilot to a drone flight with DroneBase. And let's say it's a mission in construction that will come with kind of a predefined shot list and flight plan that will ask the pilot to kind of review and understand, maybe a mix of manual and automated flight. We'll ask them to kind of complete the flight plan in addition to the shot list, and then they can come back and upload that shot list to us, and that kind of completes the task. So we'll have gone through and kind of productized or unitized at this point probably over 60 different flight plans and shot lists for our various verticals that we work in.
Can you give us any insights on who's using DroneBase?
Our paying customers would include the large national, international U.S. insurance carriers, the largest kind of residential and commercial property brokerages, would include large United States telecommunications companies, industrial companies, as well as international construction companies. So we tend to think that drones in general and DroneBase specifically is kind of really excellent, I'd say, at the property level. So call that kind of under 800 acres. So if it looks like kind of an under 800 acre parcel, that's really where we like to do our work. And so that tends to look like real estate, construction, insurance, kind of telecom, and then kind of energy/oil and gas.
Why would a drone operator use DroneBase over other platforms?
We like to think of ourselves as kind of Amazon Web Services for drone imagery and data. So, just like a company at this point probably would not choose to buy a bunch of servers and have them kind of sitting around their office. We also don't think a company, by and large, will be buying large drone fleets. I'd say really more typically we're partnering with organizations that are ready to scale out their drone operations. Like, we understand if it's a small local construction company, maybe you've only tried this on 2 or 3 sites, you kind of are working with someone who's local. But when that same company is now ready to expand to 8 to 10 different states, to start to work in a standardized, codified, uniform fashion, we're really most enterprises partner to get to scale. So the way that we work is we actually have kind of the only API for drone services. So typically our customers are going to just build into our API, and they'll just start to send us work sites. We'll take care of everything from automatically clearing the airspace to dispatching a pilot to applying the correct kind of flight plan and shot list to returning that kind of image set and analysis straight to their back end via our API. So our company's mostly software engineers, and we obviously like to solve most problems via technology. On the same token, back to our pilots, anything that is tedious or manual or just kind of laborious, like sitting there for 2 hours after a flight and kind of mapping images to different maneuvers or to different buildings, we really try to automate everything like that via technology. So we have upload tools, flight tools, really trying to let the pilot do the most kind of value-added tasks they can do during a flight and not do any of the stuff that's more tedious.
You mentioned something that I find interesting. Your website says that first and foremost, DroneBase is a tech company, not a drone services business. That's something you really don't see in other drone companies. By characterizing DroneBase as a tech company first, what does that mean in terms of the company's approach to delivering drone services?
I mean, look, I think that as you do point out, we are a technology company first. And kind of right to your question, any company that's using us is going to get kind of a scalable technology offering. And any professional pilot that's using us, I would really hope their experience would be more seamless and straightforward and less tedious than if they were just kind of flying using their own tools. If we're doing our job right, we're providing value to kind of both sides of that equation. I think one reason it's important that we're a technology company is that I think we all love drones and drone technology. Certainly all of your audience. I think we're all true believers dyed in the wool. I do think what the drone space really needs, though, is scale. Getting to scale is just vitally important for many reasons, right? I mean, if a pilot is flying their drone 4 or 5 times a year, if a construction company is only flying a drone system, once a quarter, that kind of feels more like a GoPro, kind of a nice to have technology gadget. The more that people are using their drone as kind of a daily integral tool of their professional or creative or fun career, the more this feels like a fundamental game-changing technology that's probably more like an iPhone. I think that these systems to me feel much more like an iPhone. So, it just really is important that we kind of get to scale. And what do you think about that in terms of, not just doing a dozen flights or 100 flights, but doing tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of commercial drone missions a year, right? Or a month. And the truth is, once you kind of get to scale, the economics work really well for the customer. The economics work really well for the pilot. I think that's something we've seen, and I'm sure you've seen too. I mean, I kind of remember when the original group of 7 or 8 folks got their 333 exemption. Well, I mean, even before that, right? Before there was any framework at all, people would say, oh, well, a helicopter costs $6,000, so I'll charge you $5,000. And people said, oh, great, that's really nice. $5,000 is cheaper than the helicopter for $6,000. And then I kind of remember when the original group of people got their 333 exemptions, and then a drone flight kind of cost in the mid-thousands of dollars range, which is okay. And you can probably get some big movie studios to bite for that. But how many movies are they going to make a year? Maybe some really big oil companies can do that on a couple of their assets, like a flare stack inspection. But how many of those are there really? So it is important that we kind of get the cost of a drone flight down to a level where it's ROI positive for very common commercial applications. That way you can get the really big enterprises to start to do this, not as a trial or as a test run or as like a novelty for their innovation group, but as kind of a core business practice that is reducing the cost of their business. That's really when we see big enterprises engage at this at large scale, is when it's not a novelty, not just a nice to have for the innovation group, but really a reducer of their core business costs by replacing something for kind of better, faster, and cheaper.
Now, what really drew my attention to DroneBase was a press release on an augmented reality app that is now in beta release. What's your view on augmented reality, and how does it fit into the company's offerings?
DroneBase is really laser focused, I'd say, on providing world-class drone operations. I think that even when I was back in the military, and then during kind of all my time in the commercial drone space, we really feel like the drone has been largely a camera in the sky. And, you can get a lot of value from a camera in the sky. That's clear, right? You can take those images. Those images, you can form them into maps. You can form them into models. You can take video. But I think my co-founder, Eli, and myself, we feel that to go to the kind of level of use cases and the next level of value, we need to evolve the drone from kind of a camera in the sky to a cursor in the sky. So we really feel that a drone system is actually going to be the best way for you to interact with your surroundings and really serve as your real world cursor, like a mouse you can move around the actual world. I know that may sound a little out there, but that's just our belief. So, I mean, these systems have incredibly sophisticated location software, sensors, cameras, positioning. They're not subject to gravity like your phone that's tethered to your hand. It's just a very easy and elegant way to move around your surrounding environment. So I guess like what we believed is We didn't just kind of combine drones plus AR because they're both buzzwords, but we really did believe that the drone could be your cursor in the sky. And so to really be a cursor, you kind of have to click your mouse and the mouse has to do something. And so what we just released a couple weeks ago, and you can find it on our DroneBase, open the aircraft tab. We just launched our aircraft platform. And so that is the first platform for both viewing and authoring augmented reality content with a drone. And that has obviously recreational as well as commercial purposes. So as I said, you can download our app today, take off with any DJI drone, go up into the air, and you can use the back button on your controller just like a little mouse, and you can start to place augmented reality objects in the air. They're fixed to that geographic location where you place them. If another pilot is flying using aircraft, they'll see everything that you're placing and building. If you take off the next day, you'll see it again. So you can kind of create, edit, and share that content that you're building in the sky with other pilots, or take a picture and share it around to others as well. We really think that like the next kind of use cases will come with the drone as that cursor in the sky.
As a city planner, I routinely work with GIS data and models. I could easily see a future where one could fly a drone over a neighborhood and interact with the data that is stored on a server or maybe in the cloud. Maybe you're flying and you want to know the zoning or the parcel information. You'd be able to view it by clicking on it. You wouldn't have to stop the flight and go to a separate web browser and do a separate search.
And that's completely aligns with our vision of it as well. Obviously, we're a kind of an enterprise and commercial company first, so we're quickly turning to those professional and enterprise use cases, and we'll have some exciting initial applications, very early next year. But that's exactly what we're talking about, right? I mean, if you're thinking on the city level or the neighborhood level, even at the property level, so even if you had that great data, it'd be really hard to kind of have your iPhone on the ground and really get any meaningful intelligence or data from that, just because you're right there on the ground, right? If you're trying to plan at this really large scale, the phone's a really bad mechanism to do that. Exactly what you're talking about is how we think. It's just, we think about our customers, right? Basically, every single construction company we work with has a CAD model. All of our insurance partners have really good roof models. Our property partners have parcel boundaries. You as a city planner might have a really robust model of your entire, of an entire neighborhood or area. So we think a lot about taking our customers' data and kind of displaying it back to them during a drone flight. And for us, like that really is the next level, kind of the next evolution of what drone operations are. And it's just our take that we're just still in the very early innings of what this technology will do. That's why I think a camera in the sky kind of gets you to one level, and really starting to bring in more real-time data, real-time analytics, like have this drone be more of a cursor. That unlocks, I think, the whole next segment of value in the space.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, Dan. How did you get into drones? Were you part of a technology company and then migrated to drones?
I was not. I was part of the U.S. Marine Corps, but I don't know if you consider that a technology company. We usually got the dregs of whatever the Army had left over. So we got the last of the technology. I joined the Marines kind of over 10 years ago at this point. But to be honest, kind of had early exposure to drones and drone technology while I was in the Marine Corps. I mean, interestingly enough, I was not a drone pilot. I was an infantry officer. But it was funny because all of the grunts always loved drones. A lot of the pilots kind of hated drones just because they had spent, 20 years learning their airframe or their platform, and now all of a sudden seemed like this other system could do a good job too. And so just interesting for us, like just got an early exposure to drone technology here in California, also during deployments to Iraq, Afghanistan, and a few other countries. And really, like, this just was so clearly the biggest step function advantage, unfair advantage, like living 30 years in the future. I just fundamentally believe that this technology would commercialize and come to the U.S. It was interesting. I mean, while I was in, I really watched, you could really see drone technology kind of computerized and miniaturized, right? So, I mean, like a Northrop's Global Hawk was basically a flying mainframe computer. Looked like an airplane, takes off from a runway, lands on a runway, takes about, 55 people to fly it, even though no one's on it, right? The Predator Reaper, a little smaller, maybe that's like a mini computer with a properly aviation trained pilot back at Creech Air Force Base. But then once the systems got smaller to like the Situ Scan Eagle, more of a platform launch system that really an infantry battalion might have, started to get more interesting. And then, by the time I got out, you really had much more of the AeroVironment type systems that would come straight down to infantry battalions, sometimes infantry companies. So it really was an incredible kind of decentralization and democratization of that air asset. It just felt pretty revolutionary in a military context.
How did you go from having an interest in drones to creating a company? And what advice would you give to others trying to do the same?
I was definitely not trying to start a company. I'm not sure I would recommend people do that, honestly. It's hard, but it's very rewarding. I just kind of just rolled up my sleeves and got to work. I'm sure like much of your audience, I just kind of back in 2013 and 2014, I just kind of made it my business to get to know every commercial drone operator in kind of California I could find. So I'd go a lot to people's kind of garages or sheds or workbenches. We would typically be building our own drone systems at that point, like wiring them, soldering them, very lightly programming them, and then taking them out to fly. Got to know maybe like 80 or 100 different pilots doing that, and then kind of spent myself like 6 or 7 months just working as a commercial drone pilot. I had 5 or 6 systems in my car, would go from work sites to mines to basically anybody who would let me go out. Typically at that point, I couldn't even give this stuff away for free. I think it took me 7 months for somebody to actually pay me my first actual dollar for us to fly a drone. So, in our context, we knew a lot of people who wanted being a drone pilot to be their profession. We seemed to find a lot of companies that really didn't want to buy drone fleets, but they thought this data would be interesting. And really, that's about all we knew. And no one had created a solution for this. So we just thought, hey, if we don't do it, nobody's going to do it, and decided to start the company, for that reason. So yeah, I guess just doing the work, I think, revealed a lot of insights. That's always the best place to start, just start doing the work.
Looking into the future, Dan, where do you see DroneBase fitting into the overall industry?
I feel like drones in general, and at this time, like DJI specifically, have made this great piece of hardware. Like they've made this kind of Xbox, iPhone, computer, huge hardware leap. But right now, it's like there's 10 million Xboxes and there's 0 games. So really, I think what we'd love to do is for pilots, we'd love for you to turn on your DJI drone and come to DroneBase for activities to do with that drone. I mean, I think it'll always be primarily commercial activities, but we really think a lot about the progression of a pilot. So we would just love to see more and more pilots having their drone systems as integral part of their professional or creative or fun lives. Kind of to the other side, to our customers, we would, we really would love every Fortune 500 company to be incorporating drone technology and drone operations into their business. I think where we want to take this is that we want them to make kind of one phone call to us, one API integration to us, and now they have kind of a national or international drone capability to bring drone imagery and data into their business. So that's where we want to take this, is just to really bring drone technology to many, many more customers, have people see the value in this technology, and help pilots make this a rewarding profession, a skilled labor profession, something that they can invest in their own education and invest in their tools and kind of get rewarded with a good career arc and progression and learning.
What would you say this whole experience has taught you?
It's a great question. I mean, I do think, though, as we've talked to more and more big enterprise customers, especially as we start to talk to their legal departments and their risk managers, it's really important to be able to talk about the value the technology brings to a company. or the value this brings, to a department. I think that sometimes the folks who are doing this professionally, like us, there are concerns around privacy. There are concerns around safety. There are concerns around the technology. All right. I think that the more you can do to preemptively address those concerns and be thoughtful about them, you can then go into that conversation around the value you can provide. Maybe sometimes too often we kind of launch right into the value without taking a moment to address people's kind of thoughts or concerns or reservations about the technology. That's been a lesson learned for us. Just we're drinking so much Kool-Aid sometimes, it's hard for us to understand why anyone wouldn't just want to grab this technology with both hands, but that's been an interesting learning point.
Is there anything that we missed that we should talk about?
Just given your audience would certainly love feedback and thoughts, particularly around our new aircraft platform. Would encourage pilots to check out the DroneBase pilot app. Feel free to enter your information if you're Part 107. If you don't have your Part 107 yet, please do check out our new aircraft platform. Just go start placing objects in the air and let us know what you might like to see next. We're really keeping our ears open to our community and very open to feedback and thoughts.
And one final question, Dan. What message would you like to leave people about drones and the future?
I am excited for a future with a busier sky. We look up and see a bit of a blank canvas. You might see one airplane up there. I think that we really are excited to bring kind of human ingenuity into the air via this technology. So whether you're a seasoned drone professional looking for kind of some new opportunities or just getting your start as a commercial pilot and want something that's kind of scaled to a beginner, we would love to hear from you and help make being a drone pilot a profession.
That's it for episode 138 of the Drone Radio Show. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Dan Burton of DroneBase and learning about the possibilities of augmented reality. I want to thank Dan for taking the time to speak with me. If you want to learn more about DroneBase or you want to connect with Dan, check out their webpage at dronebase.com. And if you like the Drone Radio Show, please consider supporting the podcast with a small donation. The content is always free, but for as little as $1 per month, you can help defray the cost of production. To donate, go to patreon.com/Drone Radio Show. Thanks for listening. Your support means a lot to me, and I hope you'll listen to more episodes of the Drone Radio Show podcast to hear how others are using drones for business, fun, and research. For the Drone Radio Show, I'm Randy Goers.
This has been the Drone Radio Show podcast. More information on today's show can be found on our website at www.droneradioshow.com. If you're using drone technology for business, fun, or research and would like to share your experience on the show, please visit our website and fill out a guest appearance application. And don't forget to follow us on your favorite social media channels.